Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here as always by the man who may or may not be able to tell Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence apart. Kyle, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Is that a thing? Does someone not know who they are?
It's not a thing. I don't know. They look similar, right?
Sure. So,
Listen, Kyle, I'm doing the intros here. All right, got to figure out something.
you're good. You're good. How's it going, man?
It's going good. My cold has pretty much gone away finally. My voice is still a little bit odd, but other than that, I'm pretty much normal. So that's good.
Good. Good. That's always good to hear. Yeah. Everyone seems like they've been getting sick lately. Not just you, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Everyone be safe. You don't want to get sick. Kyle, we are here. It is the playoffs. We made it.
We made it all the way through this season. It was a somewhat confusing season. We still don't really know if the Buccaneers are good, but it's
Mhm.
a somewhat confusing season. We made it all the way to this point, and we are in the playoffs and ready for Super Wild Card Weekend.
Super wild card weekend. It's not just wild card weekend, Kyle. It's super wild card weekend.
Yeah, just can't get enough of it, and it was so super that we had to add two bad teams to it just to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's more than two bad teams if we're being honest.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, this is a rough one. To some degree, Kyle. I feel like three of these games I'm very much looking forward to. Three of these games, maybe not so much. You could blame the 7 seed if you want to for it. But also, I mean, it's tough, right? Because one of these games is Seahawks 49ers, which has a 9.5 point spread. And then you also have two teams with backup quarterbacks playing. Although one of those teams I actually think still has a chance in this game. A little teaser for that. So listen, it's playoff football. It's gonna be exciting regardless.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting, but yeah, I mean, the backup quarterback situation obviously takes a little bit of the steam out of it. I think there's going to be a couple duds.
Yeah, but at the same time too, it's like, listen, we always do this, right? We always say, "Oh, this team can never is going to stand a chance," and then they end up, pulling off the upset or at least making it close.
Yeah, I'm going to pick blowouts in all of these though, so it's okay.
Well, listen, all of them, not even a single close game.
No, in the ones we're expecting.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Well, interesting. We'll talk. All there's one I think has sneaky upset potential, maybe perhaps, but yeah, no, it should be interesting. Why don't we get into it? Well, first I have to explain our scoring system, how this is going to work. So, new rules here with the playoffs here. We are in the we called it the betting round. I'm not really sure why, because you're not really betting, but the way it works is we each have 10 points that we will distribute onto each of these 6 games. Again, points are bad. You don't want points. So if you get the prediction wrong in that game, you get said points. So, for example, for Seahawks 49ers, if I pick the Seahawks to win and put 3 points on it and the 49ers win, 3 points are added to my score. It's 10 points this week. It'll be 15 points next week, 20 points on Championship Sunday. So that's how that works. And you have to put at least 1 point on every single game just to keep things interesting. So we can start with any game. Let's start with, why don't we start with Chargers Jags? How does that sound?
Yeah, we can go Chargers Jags first. Let's do it. That's going to be. Is this the most interesting game of the weekend?
I think so. I think this one and Cowboys Buccaneers are probably the two most interesting ones, because what you want in a good playoff game, especially on wild card, because sometimes you get these good games between two teams that still don't feel like they have a great chance after they win of making a lot of noise. I think the question with these two teams is, after they get past this round, what can they do? What is their ceiling? I still think they have a chance. I still think they're two kind of, if they get hot, anything can happen type of teams. But in the AFC, it could be tough, but it should be a really good game.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a good game. Now, they did play earlier in the season, and it was a Jacksonville route, but that
Mm-hmm.
was, I think, week 2 of the season or week 3. And for some reason, the Jaguars kind of came, for 2 weeks, they were kind of out of their minds, and the
Mm-hmm.
Chargers had already started their injury stuff. So, I don't really know if there's anything to take away from that matchup earlier in the season to this one. But I do think there are some interesting things in this game. Obviously, the biggest headline is going to be Justin Herbert against Trevor Lawrence, their playoff debuts respectively. Um, And I mean, we're seeing this wave of the young quarterbacks now, and especially, it seemed like the post Brady AFC, everyone's like, we need a quarterback now. This is our chance to get back in the conference conversation. Um, Allen and Mahomes were already in the conference, but then it was like Herbert's coming up, then it's Trevor Lawrence is coming up, Joe Burrow's coming up. All these guys are now in the conversation, and Lamar's the only one that's basically not playing, it seems like, from this group. But this wave of young quarterbacks is exciting, and it makes a very interesting AFC playoff picture to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I do have to say, Lawrence had a very good year. Like I almost feel like there's the comparison between Herbert and Lawrence. I'll start off maybe I don't think it's a hot take, but it's a take I feel like needs to be said. Of Herbert is still significantly better than where Lawrence is right now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's better. I mean, if you ask me 5 years from now who's better, like I think that's
Yeah.
the interesting conversation
Mm-hmm.
because I'd listen to both sides. I still think Lawrence, the best version of Trevor Lawrence can.
Did we lose Kyle for a second? Kyle's frozen on my end. I'm assuming it's Kyle. Let me know in the chat if that's Kyle or me because we can never tell. But right now it seems like we have. Oh, Kyle, you back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. My internet just shut off. All right.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're just frozen for a second, but we're back. Okay, we're good. Go. You were talking about something about this game.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, next 5 years of Trevor Lawrence versus next 5 years of Justin Herbert's, I think, more of a conversation. If we
Mm-hmm.
get the best version of Trevor Lawrence, he can definitely win this game. But we haven't quite seen it as consistently as we like. And are we going to be able to see it in this game?
Yeah, some people were saying in the chat, 2-on got him. No, not yet. We're okay for now. I think it's fascinating because you talk about the last time these two teams played. I still think there's takeaways from that game. While Keenan Allen wasn't there, Mike Williams was in that game, so possible that could be kind of a flip flop here. But still, they only have to take away one of those receivers instead of two of them, which would be a lot easier for Jacksonville, and they had no real trouble the first time doing it. You still saw some great plays from Herbert in that game, kind of those, great scramble throwing across his body type of plays. I almost wonder if he'll have to make a couple of those to move the ball effectively, because I do kind of wonder, Jacksonville, I think, is going to cover well in this one. I don't think that the Chargers are going to get a lot open, and we've seen this Chargers offense not really get a lot going, and it really is Herbert has to sort of muscle them to 20 points sometimes. We've seen that during this season, and I worry that could happen again in this one.
I'm a little worried too because they really shut down the Chargers running game too, and that was a big thing. And I mean, as far as I'm aware, Slater's still not playing in this spot. So the Chargers, while they are kind of healthier than they've been all season, they're missing their best offensive lineman now, probably at the worst possible time. I know Sonny Michel was still running for the team in that game, but they just didn't run the ball well in that game. And could this Jacksonville front seven kind of win this game along with, like you said, it's not easy to throw in these guys too. I think this is a good coverage unit. Like you said, they're probably going to be healthy at receiver and that's going to help. But at the same time, can you get enough in this spot? Because you really, I think, got to throw the ball in this game.
Yeah, and the flip side is, I think that with the Jaguars offense, I do kind of trust the Jaguars offense to score a little in this one. I think that if the Chargers come out in their quarters coverage, that could be an issue because you have Travis Etienne that you have to deal with. And it was weird where last game, if I remember correctly, it was actually James Robinson who had the good statistical day more so than Etienne. But again, I would fully expect you put Etienne in those snaps, he's going to have the good statistical day. That's a concern. And then if you don't do that, you're leaving your door open for Doug Peterson to scheme guys open down the field. I could easily see a Christian Kirk wide open over the middle type play happening in this one or two.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit too about this situation. So I want to go quickly back to week 18.
Okay.
Did it seem like Trevor Lawrence was a little spooked by the moment there?
Yeah.
Because there was 3 or 4 throws that were, you brought it up Sunday, and it had been a little bit, so I kind of forgot some of the game, honestly, from the Sunday night show. And I'm in such a daze because we've been watching football for 10 hours straight.
The Sunday night show, the fact that we even get through it is a miracle.
Yeah, exactly. And people wonder why we get off script. It's because of that.
Right.
But anyway, so it's I'm just looking at that game. There were 3 or 4 horrible throws on possible touchdowns. Like not even
Hmm.
just like, simple first down plays. There was multiple touchdowns I thought he left on the board and kept Tennessee in that game. So, you know, can we see the consistent Trevor Lawrence in this one? And one of the big things too, I think that's kind of significant for this Chargers defense is their defense over the middle has been better of late. I think that's one of the things that's helped this defense play better towards late in the season is like guys like Kenneth Murray weren't really valuable. I think it's fair to say he was just a bad football player to start this season and to start his career. It seems like they're kind of fixing some of those things a little bit, and that's why this defense I think has played better the last few weeks up until I would say this Broncos performance in week 18.
Yeah, yeah, very, very good stuff. So I guess should we pick the game now? I forget how we do this. I forget if we typically pick the games before or after on the playoffs. But let's pick the games now. Why don't we? Kyle, you're leading, or I'm leading, excuse me. So I'll pick the games first, so that way you can choose to, if you want to go against me in certain areas, you can. I'm only putting 1 point on this game. But I am picking the Jacksonville Jaguars to beat the Chargers. I am going Jaguars 25, Chargers 17.
Jaguars 25, Chargers 17. Okay. I have the Jaguars winning as well. I have 1 point on the game, and I will go Jaguars 27, Chargers 17.
So we're both expecting competitive, but pretty handedly. Jaguars handled this one pretty well.
Yeah, like I could see a situation where it's close and then maybe a late touchdown kind of ices the game. I think this is going to be a pretty competitive game. I do. But I do think Jacksonville's a little bit better. I think they're playing better football. And I'm just really worried about that Slater situation. And I could just see this being like a huge Josh Allen game, right? Like this is a game where he's coming up with multiple sacks, killing multiple drives with big plays. And I'm just worried about that offensive line against this defensive line for Jacksonville.
Yeah. The X factor, of course, is always Herbert could make a couple splash plays that could flip the game. And again, that, like you said, with Lawrence, was that just kind of a, hey, it's his first time with playoff football type atmosphere, kind of spooked him a little, and now he'll get sort of his footing, or is he going to be like this going forward? Those are the quarterbacks are always X factors, but especially in a game like this, that could easily flip it. So, again, we're both only putting 1 point on this. Neither one of us are saying that it's a lock.
Yeah. This is definitely, I would say, there's basically 3 games I'm really confident in and 3 games I'm not confident at all in. This is definitely in the not confident category. But
Yeah.
I would say, like, of the other 2 games, I would say this might be the one I'm most confident in if I'm going to compare those closer games.
Yeah. Interesting. So I think I agree, actually. Let's move on. Why don't we? Let's talk about the Cowboys Buccaneers. Why don't we? I think should be a very fun matchup. This is the Monday night game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game, Kyle. I think both offenses are going to struggle in this one. Obviously, every matchup these teams have played before this season. We don't have a single matchup where they're playing for the first time. Week 1, the Buccaneers beat the Cowboys handedly, 19-3. I think that this is going to be similar in terms of, I think both offenses are going to struggle.
I probably agree with that because, yeah, I mean, it was 22 points in that first game. I think the thing is, too, is like Tampa left some points on the board in that game because, what we thought was kind of a fluke week 1 thing turned out to be, wait, this team just doesn't have a red zone offense. And that was a bit of a problem.
Right.
But I thought the telling thing from that game, and I mean, I think by default it has to get better because it was so bad in that game. There was absolutely nobody open for the majority of that game, right? Like the Buccaneers coverage unit, I thought probably had their best game of the year and maybe one of the best defensive games of the season just in general. As far as coverage goes, there was no windows to throw. And I mean, I didn't think Dak had a great game in that one to begin with. And then he got hurt, which is besides the point. But like, there was just no windows to throw the ball. I thought that was a huge issue in that game. And I don't know how Dallas fixed that. Like, obviously, I think CeeDee Lamb's going to have a little bit of a better game. But do you trust any of these Cowboys receivers in this spot right now?
Not really. Yeah. And again, CeeDee Lamb, like you said, he did not get open much at all in that one. I think another issue is like, you have like this Dalton Schultz but then you have Levante David covering him. So this is a bad matchup for Dallas. And I also think that we've seen Prescott at times get flustered with good disguises. And I mean, that's all this Tampa Bay team does. Say what you want about Todd Bowles and what he's done this season with, his ineptitude to get the offense going. The defense has been great this season, especially it's been very well coached this season, with the exception of that Kansas City game, which every team has their bad days. It's been a very good defense, and I think it matches up against Dallas well. I really think for Dallas, it might be the best idea to just run the ball a lot, but the way Tampa Bay's run defense is, it's starting to look like the old Tampa Bay run defense again. Which if that's your best strategy, it might not be a great strategy to score, but it still might be the best strategy.
Yeah, and they started to do that basically after that game, which I thought changed a lot of their offense and made Dallas look a little more in sync. It was a better plan, I think, just in general, because they didn't have the horses in the passing game to really run that. This is really going to – I think this run game is really going to be big play dependent in this game. Tony Pollard is going to have to bust a few big ones in this one. So go ahead and clip that part out. But Tony Pollard is going to have, I think, a few big plays in this spot, because, I think Elliott can go in there and, get the dirty yards in this one. But I just don't know if it's going to be consistent enough. It's too big of a defensive front line for Tampa. It's too difficult to move. We know what they do. We know what Vea does in the middle of that defense. I just think it's too tough of an ask to ask him to get 20 carries in this game and get 4 yards per carry. I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to be on Pollard to hit a few home runs.
Yeah. The flip side, and one thing I should mention also with that is they actually ran the ball okay the first matchup. But again, different teams, and also Tampa Bay was not expecting to run at that point, since they got up big relatively early. On the flip side, a couple interesting notes I have about the other game. First, let's start off with, weirdly, Leonard Fournette was great in that one. He had 6 yards per carry and over 100 yards in the week 1 matchup. So that's something that's odd. I'm not expecting that to happen again. But also, I think Dallas has an advantage of addition by subtraction, I think. With Anthony Brown, he was out there and he got torched a good amount in that week 1 matchup. He is on the IR now. So Dallas is covered better since he's gone down. That could be an advantage, Dallas.
It could be an advantage, Dallas. But so did you hear all the conversations all of a sudden after this last game where I felt like one person said it, then everybody took it? Even Jason Garrett said it. And I don't think Jason Garrett notices much. They're all like, well, this Dallas defense on grass is a problem. And now this has become a narrative that they're a slow team on grass. I have no idea, the difference. I'm not I'm not a scientist on this. I don't know exactly the ramifications.
We are not grass scientists here.
We are not. We are not at all. But yeah, so I mean, is this an actual narrative, or is this just people saying stuff? I guess is the question, because you look at that game last week and you say, well, if it's that Dallas defense, definitely chalk up the L in this week.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that. I always feel like there's usually a reason for. It's usually just I don't know. Maybe they just play well at home, and that's all. I think that could probably be a bigger correlation. I don't know. I don't know how much of it is. Every time I hear something like that, I always just assume that it's just random.
Yeah.
Or there'll be somebody's oh, this team plays poorly at night. It's they probably just happen to play poorly at night. Even the Kirk Cousins primetime stuff. Is there something to that? Sure, but it's probably just coincidence.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of coincidence. I agree. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see. But I mean, at the same time, they didn't look good in week 18. And was it just you know what, we don't really care that much. Let's just get to the playoffs. Who cares if Philadelphia? They probably saw the scoreboard. Philadelphia's up early. We'll coast, that kind of thing. Or is this a real conversation I think we need to have? I don't know, but the Dallas defense didn't play very good at the end of the season. The Dallas offense didn't play very good at the end of the season. And I think there was a time where we were really talking ourselves into this team, and then it kind of flamed out. And I don't really know what to think of this team at this point. And then we've seen them play this Tampa team and look lifeless. I know it was week 1, so it was a long time ago. But how does this team adjust from that week 1 spot? Is it run the ball more, control the clock, and try and hit some big shots against this team? I don't know exactly how that's going to look.
Yeah. Kyle, you don't have to say the Cowboys might be the one team that we've disagreed with the most throughout this season. You seem like you've always been higher on them than me. But this again, feels like a bad matchup for their offense going up against the Buccaneers defense. And again, you never want to face Brady in the playoffs. Kind of Tampa Bay strategy seemingly has been, let's keep it close in the fourth quarter and then let Brady go off in the fourth quarter. And even 10 points is close enough for that. So there's the concern there. A lot of concerns for Dallas. That being said, they're still the favorite in this one. I am not picking the Dallas Cowboys to win. How could I? Picking the Buccaneers to win this game. Still just putting 1 point on it. I have 18-13 Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I am going to end up taking the Buccaneers in this one as well.
All right.
I think it's going to be close, but I'm just too concerned with Dallas right now and their stuff. One of the big narratives I think is going to be interesting in this game. So we know who Todd Bowles is. We know what Todd Bowles likes to do in defense, right? We know he likes to send the house. We know he likes to cover deep with his corners. He's going to ask a lot of those guys. That being said, Dak Prescott this season, 21 touchdowns versus the blitz.
Okay.
That's the most in the NFL. The other thing, though, is we have seen Tampa Bay's defense and what Todd Bowles has done the last few years in the playoffs alter their structure a little bit in the postseason. They blitz a lot less. They play more in coverage. They play a lot more safe in the playoffs and try and help their offense out a little bit more. They've done that the last 2 years when Arians was in charge. Bowles was a defensive coordinator. Are they going to stick with that with Bowles in charge? I think is the big question, because I do think they need to drop a little more in coverage in this one, because I think they're going to be able to overwhelm this this Cowboys receiving core. So give me the Bucs in this one. I'm going to go 21-14.
And wow, and you have them scoring over 20 too.
3 touchdowns. Let's make it happen.
Okay, well, yeah, 3 touchdowns. I was wondering if for a second maybe it was like 7 field goals.
That's a possibility too.
That might be more likely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They can get to 21. It's Brady in the postseason. Let's do it.
Well, listen, I don't even pay attention. I have them scoring 18. I don't know how that's going to happen.
Yeah, fair enough. You've got some interesting score lines here. I got to say, you got 18 in this one. Did you have the Jaguars scoring 25? I mean, well, because you got some interesting scoregami going on right now.
I do. Well, the way I do it is when I do my video things is I just do how many points per drive are they going to score, and then I just pick like okay, this game feels like a 11 drive game, and so then I do it. But then that obviously creates weird scores.
Yeah, fair. You need a pace metric, is what you need. Try and guess.
My thing is like, I feel like the Buccaneers will score close to 18 points. They're not going to probably score exactly 18, but I don't know. I don't want to put it down to 17, and then they score 20. Now I look like a fool who couldn't even get it within 2.
I guess so. Fair enough, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is our preview of that game. We have 4 more left. Let's just go with we talked about the 3 games that we are talking about as close games. We're going to start off with those, but I still think there's intrigue in the other 3 games. So don't turn that dial after we get done with this one. But Giants Vikings, the Fraud Bowl in the playoffs. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. Like, this is the most frustrating game to pick, without a doubt. I have no idea where I'm going with it, and we're about to pick it here in like 10 minutes. These 2 teams have been confusing, frustrating, stupefying. Was
that on your word of the day calendar?
Yeah, I mean, no, it wasn't on my word of the day calendar, but I'm just trying to think, what other adjectives can I use for these 2 teams? They're just so perplexing, such perplexing football teams. I think New York is incredibly well coached. I think they're talent deficient, but I think they have a real identity to them, and I think that basically carries them a long way. I think they know exactly who they want to be, how exactly to win football games. And you know what? Despite some of the talent deficiencies I think they have, especially in the offensive side of the ball, they got really good athletes, especially at quarterback and running back, that I think go a long way. Minnesota, on the other hand, is very talented on one side of the ball and not very talented on the other side of the ball. And I'm not really sure the coach really cares about that other side of the ball sometimes. So I think it's a very frustrating team to try and pick. They have basically, they basically TCU'd their way through this entire season to a 13-4 record. I mean, every one of their games except for the last game of the season was seemingly close, all the way down to the wire. It's a very confusing team, and you just think eventually this is gonna, this shit's gonna catch up to them, right?
Uh, Maybe, but the issue is, would that be this week? Is I think the question. I've always kind of been a little bit of a Vikings defender. I still don't think that they are on the level of San Francisco and Philadelphia, but I like them. There's things I like about this team. I like their receiving core. I guess I like their receiving core and think Kirk Cousins is all right. That's what I like.
Yeah,
And
I
their
think
tackles one healthy, although O'Neal's now injured.
yeah. I think that's what everybody likes. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what everyone's kind of interested in. Although I think, I think Thielen still can like catch everything, but he
Mm-hmm.
can't really get separation anymore. But like even besides that, like I think Osborne's a solid 3. I
Yeah.
think Hawkinson's a nice tight end, obviously. I think that was actually a pretty good pickup for them. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody likes all those same things about Minnesota. It's just everything else is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, what was interesting was the last time these teams played, it was Julian Love and TJ Hawkinson going at it one-on-one for a good chunk of the game. Again, Giants do everything, right? They don't just run one coverage. They're the kind of team that every single play in the playbook, they seemingly run every single game. But we saw a good chunk of that, and both guys performed well when they were against each other. It was a very good on good a lot of times during that. So that's another interesting matchup to look towards. And the Vikings running attack was effective in this one. They got a lot of stuff through play action in the first matchup, and I'm wondering if that'll continue because again, you can just also have Justin Jefferson do his thing and try to get open that way. But I think the Giants are actually okay if you're trying to do that because then they can sort of scheme up, ways to get after your quarterback and all that good stuff. So, I think for the Vikings, I think they're going to want to stick with the running game in this one, at least a little.
Yeah. I think they are going to want to as well, especially, the Giants aren't a very good run defense. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing that we have to be a little bit concerned about when it comes to this Vikings team, and you mentioned it a little bit, is the health of this offensive line with O'Neal out. I mean, it's unless Bradbury is ready, it might be their third center, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not a good situation to go into the playoffs with.
Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah. And Dexter Lawrence is also a pretty good nose tackle.
Right.
That's not
Yeah.
something you want your third string center to go against. So I think that's a bit of a problem. We'll see if Bradbury can go. I mean, he hasn't played in 5 weeks too, so it's not like it's something that's easily going to be able to come back from. We'll see how that looks. But yeah, I mean, I think the Vikings could establish the run in this game, play action. That's probably where Cousins is most comfortable anyway. He likes to take those shots downfield. Let Jefferson make big plays in those situations. My question is, can they get enough against this Giants defense?
Right. Well, and the flip side too is I think the Giants should be able to score in this one. I think it's pretty much throw the ball away from Patrick Peterson, who had a great start to the season and is still playing well for the Vikings. But you kind of just stay away from him, attack the other secondary guys, and you should be all right to put up some points in this one.
Yeah, without a doubt. It should be, but at the same time, like attacking corners isn't really the issue for New York. It's just, that the teams are going to be selling out against the run basically in this playoffs, right? Like I think they've already seen it the last few weeks of the season, but do you ever see a situation where there's not at least 7 Vikings in the box defensively against this Giants offense?
Well, but that's not really what the Vikings love to do, right? They like to play their 2 safety deep coverage. That's kind of the unique thing here.
But you have to, right? Like it would be inexcusable if Saquon Barkley has like 150 yards in this game and you lose.
I guess so. I guess you're right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if they adjust because I think that's one of the things with this, as teams adopt this Fangio defense, they don't like to adjust away from it. That's been a
Right.
big thing with a lot of these defenses.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not a conventional offense by any means. I mean, Richie James is the best receiver, who I kind of like, but he's probably a third receiver at the best.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the situation you're going into, this is absolutely the reason you have to adjust.
While I don't disagree, I just don't know that it will. I just don't know that they're going to do that.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing because I think it'd be insane if you just drop everyone in coverage and let Daniel Jones and Saquon get 5 free yards of carry.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying like they're not going to do it at all. I'm just saying I think that they'll still want to play their 2 safety deep coverages, and I also have to say, I think if this team is playing quarters and it's Richie James out there, I think he'll still find ways to get open. I don't think that this Vikings team, the gaps in coverage are wide.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been a big problem for them all season. It's it's not a awesome coverage unit by any means. And I think we've talked about this before. Football, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is a weak link sport.
Mm-hmm.
There are good players on this Viking secondary. There's not enough good players. And if there's guys to target, you can find ways to get guys open and scheme them into situations, into space against mismatches.
Yeah. So I think both teams will score, but I have the Vikings. I have the Giants scoring 22 and I have the Vikings scoring 23. I think this is a close one. I could see it going either way. To me, this is the game I am most on defense about, as you can tell by only having a 1-point victory for the Minnesota Vikings, but I do have the Vikings pulling off this victory.
We were so excited to bet against both these teams. Everybody was. Everyone was ready to bet against both these teams. Give me the Giants 27-24.
Oh.
1 point. Give me the Giants to win this game. I don't trust this Minnesota team any further than I can throw them, the whole team, which is not very far, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't love the spot for the Vikings here, and I think that this isn't a very good football team. So I will take the Giants to win.
I'm trying to figure out practically how throwing them would work. Are they all on like a sling or something?
Yeah, I would have to get some sort of like slingshot. Definitely.
Yeah. Or perhaps like they all stand on, it's like a giant like wooden spoon, and they're all on like the spoon thing, and then you grab kind of the end part.
That's a big spoon. I don't know.
But then you throw it over and that's how you throw them.
Yeah, I'm not sure either of those is going to work for me. I think maybe I could like catch him in a net and then try and hurl the net.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. Yeah, and what if you actually could throw them really far? Found out you had like a superpower, but your superpower is you can throw NFL teams really far.
Then I would probably quit my job and do it as like a halftime show act.
Yeah, that'd be a good. It'll be dangerous, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many teams would sign on.
Right. Yeah. I'd watch it though.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody will. If I could throw 53 human beings, that would be incredible. I would watch myself do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So Kyle will work on that. In the meantime, let's move on to another game. Kyle, I'm gonna talk Ravens Bengals because I think there is a bit of upset potential here. Now, Lamar will almost certainly not be playing. I don't think it's been officially announced, but he's not practicing. So seems like this is Tyler Huntley time in Baltimore or in Cincinnati for Baltimore, which is unfortunate. It sucks that this Lamar injury went on as long as it did. I thought he was going to be okay because this would have been a really exciting game. I still think there's some hope here for Baltimore. They did beat Cincinnati earlier on this year.
They got him early in the year. They didn't look very competitive until the end of the game last week, and I think Cincinnati just kind of started cruising again.
But they weren't even playing their backups at that point.
Yeah, I mean, they do that at times too. They just cruise in general, which is fine if you're good and you win. But, there's a chance for that if you're looking at betting lines. I don't know. The vibes in Baltimore are rough, right? Like,
sure.
Doesn't seem like the quarterback's playing. It doesn't seem like anyone has really any idea what's going on. And I mean, we keep bringing up this contract stuff, and I don't know. I think he's really hurt. I don't think this is a contract ploy. I don't see the value, contract or not, to miss playoff games just because.
Right.
But the vibes definitely are off with this team right now. And I mean, I thought the Roquan extension was really weirdly timed too.
Yeah.
And not to mention you made him the highest paid linebacker in NFL history. I didn't love that too much. But regardless, besides the point, that's a different conversation. I don't know. I think this Templey stuff's kind of flamed out. They don't have pass catchers. I mean, the one thing that happens here, and it's your favorite thing to talk about, is if Zach Taylor goes full Zach Taylor and actually tries to run the ball on what's probably the best part of this Ravens team right now, which is their run defense.
Yeah, there's a concern. There's also a concern. Will the Ravens, will they try to leave Marlon Humphrey on Jamar Chase one-on-one a lot? I think they've learned their lesson for the most part. I don't think they're that team anymore. I think the Ravens are the kind of team where sort of fool me 3 times is shame on me, but then they figure it out, kind of thing. I don't think that they'll be in that situation too much. I'm sure there will be some opportunities, and what will happen there, could be where could potentially be where the game is won or lost. I do think that the Ravens defense stands a chance at slowing down this Bengals offense, which is an offense that is not easy to slow down because they do have we talk about games being won on the outside. This is one of the few teams that actually matched up okay against Cincinnati.
Well, here's my thing. Is this the best team defensively to match up with this Bengals offense in the AFC right now?
Interesting. Probably. Yeah, I would say so. And again, the issue is sometimes they get too excited, right? And then they they'll go like cover zero, and then they'll get burned down the field. But I think personnel wise, I would say probably yes.
Yeah. I think the problem is like I think they haven't graded out particularly well. And I think that's a
Sure.
bit of a problem. Like
Hmm.
we keep saying, okay, these are nice players on the outside. Well, could they start playing nice? Like,
Hmm. That's
you know,
fair. Hmm.
I think that's one of the questions I have is like, can these? We've had this with a few teams this year. Um, you know, I would like to see these guys start getting stops. I think they can. I think they have the talent to, but I do think there's going to be questions on, and especially like in the situation. Okay, if you all of a sudden start needing to put two guys on Jamar Chase, which is what most teams should do, and I think they will do. Are you taking Marcus Williams and Marlon Humphrey out of the equation, trying to match Jamar Chase? Because then they're just going to go at everybody else with T.
Well, but
Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and all that stuff.
I mean, you probably wouldn't do your best 2 secondary players if you're going to double Chase. I think you could figure out something out. Maybe um, you could put Peters on him, for example, and which maybe might not be the best matchup because Peters isn't the fastest, but I think there's things you could do, and then if I would actually probably trust Humphrey to cover T Higgins 1-on-1 consistently. I think I would like that matchup.
Yeah, there's potential. I don't love the Peters on Chase thing, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that matches up. But I mean, even if they do scheme well, we haven't seen this group play as well as we wanted to, and I think that's a bit of a concern. And I don't know, like I at this point, I don't know if anyone can stop this Bengals offense consistently enough. I think this is the best offense in football right now, just because of the depth and variety of playmakers they have on the group. Running back, at receiver, tight end. I just think it's a really tough group to stop, and I don't trust any of these AFC defenses right now to get stops against this Cincinnati team.
Another thing that's I think the tougher thing for this, the Ravens team at times has definitely given up stuff through the air. Although you look at like the PFF grades, like Peters is still graded well, Humphrey's still graded well, Kyle Hamilton's graded incredibly well. They have had good safety play throughout. Well, their secondary corners outside of Humphrey and Peters have been kind of an issue. So maybe it could be a Tyler Boyd game in this one. I think one of the things that jumps out at you is this pass rushing situation for the Ravens. We talk about how many sacks Burrow takes, and if you can get to him, that can be a real way to hurt this Bengals offense. And it's really been kind of Justin Houston on his own, which is not a great situation. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul came in midway through the season. No one else is giving him an offer, and he's played like significant playing time for the Ravens. This has not been an effective pass rushing situation for Baltimore, and because of that, that's really concerning.
Yeah, and that was something that was kind of like the Ravens not being able to rush the passer is kind of a surprising thing, isn't it? And a lot of
Hmm.
it is, I mean, the guys they drafted haven't really been the guys we were expecting, too, right? Like a lot of these guys haven't quite been to the expectations we were hoping for, I think, overall. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, I mean, they're going to have to get some pressure. I just don't know if there's enough guys on this defensive line. Getting Campbell out there is going to help, but I just don't know. I don't know. I think I just don't see it this week. I really don't. I think there's just too much not going in the Ravens' favor here, and I think it's going to be really hard to try and counteract that on this defensive side of the ball. This defense has to play its best game of the season to win this game. Correct?
Well, I mean, they played, they held him to 17 earlier on this season.
Yeah, they did. What week was that? I'm trying to remember now. Let's go
Uh,
back to it.
I don't remember either. And
Week
it's I
5.
think they might have
Yeah.
had an injury. I think the Bengals might have had an injury in that game. I don't remember.
Let's take a look. Looks like T. Higgins wasn't playing.
Okay, that,
So
that might be right. Yeah, which again, obviously is a big help. But then still, I'm saying I think it's possible. To spoil that side, I still have the Bengals scoring 26. I think the Bengals will have a good offensive day. I just don't know if it'll be the offensive explosion. And maybe there's potential for a little bit lower. But can the Ravens score points in this game is a question. Tyler Huntley is no one's going to call him a superstar, right? That's just not who he is. And the Ravens have at times struggled to score with him out there. Is this a game though where they can potentially run the ball effectively and find ways to put up points that way, and be able to again? Maybe they only give up 17 because this is an 8 possession game, and then they can score 21 and win the game that way. That feels like the blueprint for me for Baltimore, which I don't think it's a crazy blueprint.
it's not a crazy blueprint. I don't know why I'm struggling to say that.
Mhm.
But it is going to have to be a control the possession scenario, control the clock scenario. I think to have success against the Cincinnati team, the big thing for Cincinnati is I just think it's a better defense. I mean, it's obvious reasons, but it's a significantly better defense when DJ Reader plays. And I thought, when they got hurt in the run game, Reader was out. He missed 6 games this season. So when he's in there and when he's locked in, I just think it's a really tough group to run on. I think they have a really nice defensive line. I think they got guys they can rotate in and out too. I like Hendrickson, obviously. I like Hubbard. There's a lot of nice pieces there. I think it's going to be tough to try and beat that defensive line. I think that's a really good group. And it's also going to be tough to throw on them because this Ravens team is passing deficient without Lamar out there, without some of their pass catchers out there. And this Bengals defense, I think, surprisingly, when Awuzie went down for the season, has held up. It's still a top 10 defense in the pass game.
Yeah, I think there's actually some concerns with this Bengals secondary, but it hasn't shown them yet, right? Like I want to see more. I think it's concerned. I don't think it'll happen in this game though. I think the Ravens
Yeah.
should have. Ravens will not be able to throw the ball too much. The way Ravens score points, which I think they will be able to score some points in this game. It's going to be through the ground. It's going to be that way, and then scheming stuff up because of that. And then I think that I'm interested in seeing how Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard will not just rush the passer, but just contain Huntley, not let him move. Because sometimes that's how you beat Huntley is almost by letting him try and run and then being able to get the big plays that way by sacking him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key. If they get too overexcited, get after him in the backfield, I think they get beat a little bit. And, the back-to-back week thing's a little bit weird too, right? Like, I mean, I know the narrative stuff of can you beat a team twice is always kind of a little premature, a little ridiculous sometimes. But playing a team back-to-back weeks, especially, I think there's a lot of emotion from that Cincinnati side when I think a lot of people in Cincinnati were pretty upset with the coin toss stuff. And now they're in a situation where they went out early and try to beat the crap out of them in that game, and now they got to go and do it again. I don't think that's necessarily an easy thing mentally to do twice.
Right. And while the Ravens were, saying, "Hey, go, you guys go play. We'll put in our backups." They got now a week of tape as well, and not just tape, but live. Get to watch live reps against that team. You have to figure that favors Baltimore a little.
I think so. Do you take anything away from that game stylistically, or do you think Ravens were like, we're not going to show them anything?
Not really. No, I didn't take it. I mean, there's probably some small little nuggets you can pick up through watching it, but nothing major.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I think the matchup's still kind of interesting, rivalry matchup, obviously. And then,
Mm-hmm.
I think the added element of having to play a team back-to-back weeks is not always a fun scenario for teams.
Yeah. So I have the Bengals winning 26-20. I think that this is an interesting matchup, but I do think that the Bengals ultimately pull off a victory. Kyle, who do you have winning this?
How many points you got on that?
Oh, right. 1 point.
I have 2 points.
Okay.
I got Bengals 31, Ravens 13.
You're saying really no chance.
Yeah.
Not no chance, but it's any given Sunday, but you don't see it happening.
Yeah, I can never say never, but at the same time, I just don't see how the Ravens throw the ball here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to have to take significant Andrews game in an unbelievable defensive game that they haven't played all season.
Yeah.
So give me the Bengals.
Yeah. I get it. All right. 2 games left. Let's go Seahawks 49ers, I suppose, as both of these teams will be putting in the quarterback they want to put in. Well, kind of. I mean, both of these teams might still be playing their best quarterback, even though the Niners are under third. How crazy is it that, we talk about all these backup quarterbacks? There's actually 3 teams of backup quarterbacks in, but one of them is still just winning with Brock Purdy. They haven't missed a beat. Purdy's 5-0. The 49ers offense has historically been able to scheme up stuff pretty well against Pete Carroll, who, listen, he loves to tell people at this point, doesn't just play cover 3 zone. Still plays a lot of cover 3 zone, though. It's not just that it is fair. They play more man now. They do all this stuff. Still play a lot of cover 3 zone. Kyle Shanahan destroys cover 3 zone historically. There's so many weapons for this 49ers offense. It's hard to imagine Seattle being able to do too much defensively.
It's hard, especially, so we got a little taste of Seattle against Brock Purdy. And while the score line of that game was close, the game script says otherwise, right? Like it just didn't seem like San Francisco didn't really finish drives there. They had over 1.5 yards more per play in that game. They were pretty turnover free in that one. They ran the ball well. McCaffrey had a big game. Brock Purdy had a pretty good game. Like it was pretty heavily skewed towards San Francisco in that game more than people think. And it's going to be interesting to see how they counter to that because, yeah, I mean, this is a bread and butter San Francisco matchup, isn't it?
I think so. The one thing that maybe could be a concern, though, is, there was a play in that one where Purdy threw it directly to Quandre Diggs, and Diggs just dropped it. To me, that might be the one thing you have to make sure you do if you're Seattle. Is feels like every game Purdy gives you like one perfect opportunity. He gives you one gift a game. You have to take advantage of it, right? He's not some quarterback who's making these terrible throws constantly, but it feels like he'll give you one. You have to take advantage.
Yeah, you're gonna have to capitalize on, and it's a rookie in his first playoff game, which he's defied all expectations to this point. I still don't think that's an easy situation to step into. So it'll be interesting to see how that matches up. I'm excited to see Christian McCaffrey, though. Is it? I mean, I'm trying to think. This is McCaffrey's first playoff game, isn't it?
Yeah, I would assume so. It's possible he made one with Carolina.
Yeah, someone can fact check me on that one. I'm not, married to that take, but I'm excited to see him in this one because I think he's been the huge benefit. All the talk has been on Brock Purdy and what he's done this season. Rightfully so. I think he's been terrific as the quarterback since he stepped in. Difficult situation, third string quarterback, rookie year for a contending team, and he's just hit the ground running. McCaffrey in 11 games this season has almost 5 yards to carry. He also has 465 yards passing. He's got 10 total touchdowns. Everything that they traded for, everything that we were hoping for out of this offense with Christian McCaffrey added to it, it's been that and then some. It's worked out to, in tenfold. The trade was a huge win for San Francisco at this point. I mean, he's been a huge part of this offense. And, I don't put a lot of value in the running back position, but when it's Christian McCaffrey, I do.
Right. I think we've always kind of said, running backs tend to not matter too much unless you get a guy like McCaffrey or just an elite guy in general. McCaffrey has played in a playoff game. He played it against the Saints in a wild card round. That was a game where he only had six rushes for 16 yards, but he also had 100 yards receiving in that game. If I remember correctly, he had like a really long receiving touchdown. That was a good game, 31-26 Saints victory. Remember, that was kind of back and forth. But yeah, I agree. He's meant a lot to this team. And there's so many weapons on this 49ers team. I feel like it doesn't get talked about a lot. Like with, Ayuk, you have Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and then obviously McCaffrey. Like, there's just McCaffrey. Kyle Juszczyk had a big play in that one. Kyle Shanahan has saved like 14 Kyle Juszczyk plays for the playoffs.
Yeah. The juice is definitely going to get loose at some point in this game. I will say the one thing too with McCaffrey, one more point on this, there's a ton of stars on the San Francisco defense. It is really, and especially when you add in Kyle Shanahan's play calling, which I think we can, I think there was a good debate about it, most years. Kyle Shanahan's the best play caller in the league, bar none. I think
at least offensive.
Yeah. He is, bar none, been fantastic this season. He's hit all the right buttons, especially since Purdy's come in. Everything has looked fantastic. I will say, too, one more thing on this McCaffrey point. Not only has it been good this season, they've kept him pretty well rested, which I think is a big thing. He has had one game this entire stint with the 49ers where he had over 20 carries. Can you guess which one that was?
Um, which one?
The game against Seattle. He had 26 carries
Okay,
in that one.
gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So that's basically, he had 7 more carries in his next highest game with San Francisco. Um, and I mean, the reason for that is quite obvious. I think one of the things we talked about the Seahawks defense, I think they've gotten a little bit better through the air this season. I think they've added some pieces that I think have been pretty nice. Their run defense, which has normally been pretty rock solid, not very good this season. It hasn't been good throughout the year. It's gotten worse, it seems like at times. And I think they identified that matchup as Christian McCaffrey can run wild against this team. And this is a huge matchup nightmare, I feel like, for them trying to mark him.
Yeah. On the other side, we haven't talked about too much. Seattle's really struggled to score points against San Francisco this season. Everyone has. San Francisco has the best points per drive defense in football to give up just 1.48 points per drive on the year. Seattle is averaging 0.65 points per drive against San Francisco in their 2 matchups. They scored 0 points in the first matchup. Their only touchdown came on a special teams play, and then 13 points in the 11 drives the second time they played. They've really struggled to score in this one. It makes sense, right? Because you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are kind of like, that's what they do. Those are their guys. But with all the, the Vic Fangio style defense that San Francisco runs, every time those guys really go anywhere, there's a crowd of Niners around them. And there's, not a lot you can do about that. One thing I saw them do was they isolated. I'm trying to remember who the wide receiver was, but they isolated a different wide receiver, sort of one of these other guys. He was the one eligible receiver on the other side of the field. All 4 were on the offense's right, and kind of were able to get a one-on-one matchup that way down the field. Feels like that's what you're going to have to do. But then you're talking about, some of these not great receivers are going to have to step it up for Seattle to really move the ball down the field. And I don't know how confident I feel in that.
Yeah, I mean, since they got on this win streak, there just hasn't been a lot of yards to gain against this team, really. And I mean, the question is, what are they prone to getting beat by? Because it's really hard to kind of try and think of a way to scheme against this San Francisco team. Like you said, isolate a guy one-on-one. I will say, like, if you look at the teams that have beat San Francisco this season, a lot of it has to do with big receivers. Like, it hasn't really been steady. Like, if you look at just the small sample stuff, Juju Smith-Schuster, 7 catches, 124 yards, touchdown. He had a couple big plays in that game too. That feels like forever ago. Devontae Adams, 7 catches, 153 yards, 2 scores. We know who he is. Darren Waller also had 72 yards and a touchdown, a couple big catches in that one as well. And then the last one too is trying to find my notes here. Terry McLaurin had a pretty nice game against him too. He had 4 catches, 77 yards, and a score in that one. This feels like
Alameda. Don't forget about Alameda Zacchaeus of the Falcons.
Yes, of course. How can I forget about that?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I look at it and it's like, this has to be a big Metcalf spot, right? Like, that's probably the guy you're looking at when you look at the player archetype that has kind of gotten San Francisco a little bit this season. I mean, it's Metcalf basically in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, but you're going to be if you're throwing to him a lot, you're throwing to him with a couple San Francisco players around him a lot. That's what I mean. Like, he's not going to get one-on-ones very frequently, if at all, in this one.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I mean, even like we said that, but at the same time, I think you look at those 2 situations, the San Francisco or the Las Vegas game, and I think you look at the Kansas City game, because those are the 2 teams that really kind of got. I'm discounting that Atlanta game. That feels like an anomaly at this point.
Sure.
If you look at that Kansas City game and you look at the Las Vegas game, okay, how did those guys get open so much? One of them was Jarrett Stidham. I think they were basically daring Jarrett Stidham to throw the ball downfield. And to Jarrett Stidham's credit, he played that game with a big set of balls and he threw the ball downfield a lot. Yeah. He was ready to attack those guys. It felt like the Mahomes situation. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. But a lot of that has to do with his ability to buy time. And he's probably the most unsackable quarterback in the league. Can Geno buy enough time to make those plays? I think one of the things that's I don't love Geno Smith when he's buying himself time. I like Geno Smith on game script. I don't love Geno Smith when he's running around.
Yeah, I think it's done okay, running around too much. Although one thing I have to say that we haven't talked about at all is the idea of Charles Cross blocking Nick Bosa terrifies me.
You don't love that matchup?
No, not a great matchup.
Maybe in 3 or 4 years where we get the best version of Charles Cross, but
Sure.
definitely not
Hmm.
right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have played for better or worse. They have put those kids on the outside and said, "Good luck, kids."
Hmm.
I don't know if this is the team you love that matchup with.
No, and they didn't run the ball effectively the first time these two teams played either. I'm expecting a blowout, to be honest. I hope Seattle can make it interesting because obviously I want to watch interesting games. I have 49ers 29, Seahawks 11, and I'm putting 3 points on it for San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm gonna do 1 point in this game.
Okay,
Just a
interesting.
little worried. Like I still think like despite how bad it got, they got off to a crazy start. They dipped a little bit. Looked like they fell back down to earth. They still have scored points at times this season, and I'm not going to discount the idea of Lockett, Smith, and Metcalf kind of, and a healthy Kenneth Walker, which he didn't have a very good game the first time. I still think he's a slippery kind of running back who's tough to tackle. You know, San Francisco's the team that's kind of built to stop any running game, but I'm not going to discount the playmakers that Seattle has and says, can they hit a few big plays? Can they make some things happen? I will say San Francisco 24-14.
Sure. And again, there is the could. I think we've all been waiting for could Brock Purdy have one of those? Oh, he is a nearly undrafted rookie. Good
I think we
performances.
have
Could he
said
do one?
that every Wednesday.
Yeah.
We have said, could this be the game Brock Purdy falls apart? And
I
he
know,
still
but
hasn't
it's
fallen
still a
apart.
fair question, though. We've
Yeah.
still only seen him 5 games. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's still a fair question.
Yeah. So I think I do think it's fair. I do think it's in the realm of possibility. But yeah, I got 1 point on that game. Um, I do think the 49ers are a significant better team. I do want to see them in this playoff scenario situation though. Like, this team has been a buzz saw. Can it keep up? Can some of these guys who are a little bit, inexperienced, can they make it happen?
Yeah, definitely. Final game we have to talk about Dolphins Bills, which is I think earlier I was going to say speaking of quarterbacks falling apart, but I took Falcon. Skylar Thompson had a rough day at the office for the Dolphins. I don't know if it'll be him or Bridgewater. Tua has been ruled out, but either way, you do not have your starting quarterback here. If it's Skylar Thompson, this feels like it could be a complete rout. Maybe there's some more hope if you have Bridgewater out there, but still not a lot. We'll preview the game, kind of talk about what the possibilities are for the Dolphins, because hey, it's still football. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. Although it, would take a lot here. Let's first talk about the Dolphins offense. Can the Dolphins offense score in this one? The one thing I have to say is both times these two teams played previously, Jalen Waddle went off. So it feels like maybe using the speed of these Dolphins receivers, especially if you get one on Tre'Davious White, maybe doesn't have his full legs back just yet. Getting a couple big splash plays might be what you need.
Yeah. To answer the question, can the Dolphins score? In theory, yes. They've done, I know they only had 21 in that first game, but that was also in like ungodly heat. And
Right.
I think they still had over 10 yards of play or something like that, right? 10 yards pass. They still had a pretty decent game in that one, offensively. In theory, they should. The problem is obviously the quarterback situation where we are looking at Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater coming off an injury, which, I mean, when Teddy Bridgewater hasn't played, it hasn't been that good either. I know we were kind of thinking, is this guy like a fringe starter backup kind of thing? I think it's pretty fair to say that he's just a backup. That's exactly what he is. And it hasn't looked that good this season. But I think in terms of the matchup, like if this were a fully healthy Dolphins team, this game's compelling because I've done my rant the last couple weeks, so I'm not going to do it again. Don't love this corner secondary situation for Buffalo. I don't think it's very good, and I think these Miami receivers are excellent. And I think it might hurt the Bills down the road, this secondary spot. And I think a healthy Dolphins team, it might hurt them. But if I don't trust who's throwing the ball as good as those receivers are, I can't pick it in good conscience. That's one of the things I'm looking at there. But I do think that's something that, Bills are going to have to account for. And, we'll see how it adjusts.
Yeah, you have to think, and so Teddy Bridgewater is limited in practice. You have to think you got to throw him out there, right? I mean, listen, if it's risking his future health, okay, don't. But like, if even if he's not 100%, I just think you still have to throw him out there and say like, we've seen what Skylar Thompson can do. Bridgewater has at least shown flashes of being a competent quarterback in a Dolphins uniform. He's shown more than he's been a solid quarterback in different uniforms. I think that you have to. I think it's a no-brainer that I'm throwing him out there. I think he has a better chance of hitting those Jalen Waddle deep shots if he's even 80%.
Yeah. Who would you like more in this spot? Skylar Thompson right now or signing Cam Newton? Like, be honest.
I think give me Skylar Thompson. I think for sure.
I don't know. Signing anyone, I guess, off the who's available, I guess is the question. This is a tough spot.
Jay
I
Cutler
mean, Jay Cutler. What is?
wouldn't be
I
the
thought he
first
was on
time.
thought he was on a reality show.
That
I don't know.
checks out.
Yeah, but yeah, in essence, yes, obviously Skylar Thompson knows the playbook a little bit better and all that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been a rough watch, man. I feel bad, dragging the kid, but now he's in the playoffs. He's got to perform. This is
Uh-huh.
the spot he's stuck in. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But at the same time, like the Dolphins are in a tough spot. We'll see how this matches up. The other thing too is it's not the only injury that they've had. Like if you look through
Mm-hmm.
if you go through the injury report, um, Teron Armstead did not practice. Bradley Chubb paid a lot of money for him, did not practice. Liam Eichenberg didn't practice. Raheem Mostert didn't practice. And Mostert's actually been pretty good, even with whoever's at quarterback. He's been pretty good. So it's a if they're down all of these guys, there's no chance. I think it's a really tough situation. I think if Bridgewater is even possible of playing, he has to get in there.
Yeah. The flip side is all you have to worry about is Josh Allen coming to town. Again, I keep saying being in town. I guess going to Josh Allen's town to try and stop him and his big arm, which we've seen teams struggle with. Feels like you're going to get a lot of these great Josh Allen throws in this game. Would be the assumption. Perhaps you can trick him into some turnovers. That's kind of always the hope of Josh Allen. It really is kind of the you sort of just pray that he gives you some bad Josh Allen plays. But I don't know. I don't trust the Dolphins defense to do too much to slow him down. But we have seen it happen before, and that's just what you hold out hope for Miami is that you can get Teddy to come in. You can hit some of those Jalen Waddle deep shots, and then Josh Allen is not able to kill you as he killed your team on week 18 with some of those just like godly 50-yard bombs.
Yeah. Maybe just let him into the red zone and then try and play defense. Don't let him
Yeah,
hit
I
the
like
50-yard
that.
ball. Yeah, I mean,
Good
the
idea.
red zone thing has been a little weird. And you know what? That's the one thing, like, it hasn't been as good this season, but like the best version of this Miami defense has been a turnover machine, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen, for everything that he's done really well this season, he is like, I don't think he's an MVP, he's not a front runner for MVP, but he's still kind of an MVP candidate this year. For everything that he's done well this season, he's a little turnover prone. He's prone to a mistake. He's prone to trying to fit a tight window and, giving you a chance at the ball. Can Miami capitalize on some turnovers there? That's going to be interesting. But I don't know. Like, this is another one where I go through some of the injury reports. It's Bradley Chubb, like I said, in practice, Melvin Ingram. I think in essence, if I looked at like this, another one where it's like, if I looked at this Dolphins defense fully healthy, like they kind of have the athletes in the front seven you want so that Allen's not just running around buying himself some time and waiting for a guy to get open, right? Like Ingram's a pretty good pass rusher. Jalen Phillips is excellent. I like Christian Wilkins in the middle. I like Chubb. I like there's somebody else. Yeah, I like Chubb. And like you think in essence, like that's a pretty good front line to like chase around Allen, get in the backfield, don't let him buy too much time. But just none of these guys are healthy. And I don't know exactly what they're gonna be able to do in that spot.
Yeah, I get it. Also, I would say that the flip side, though, is that you're kind of wasting them a little bit because Josh Allen's a great ability to run outside the pocket means that they can't really just rush the passer regularly. They also have to make sure they're in contained and not giving up a running lane.
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing. If they get caught up field, then they're giving up a big play. And they have to win their matches, basically. They have to get after them, and they have to bring him down to the ground, which is, winning your matchup on the line of scrimmage is the first task. The harder task for Buffalo is tackling Josh Allen at that point, which is not an easy task.
Right. I think it's going to be tough for Miami. I think there's potential, but I think it's going to be difficult. I have the Bills winning 26-15. I'm also putting 3 points on the Bills. And Kyle, you're putting a lot of points on the Dolphins to pull off this upset.
I'm putting 4 points on the Buffalo Bills. I think there's too much to overcome. Too many injuries to this Dolphins team. They flamed out. If it was the Dolphins team after week 11, week 12, I'd be like, all right, this is a fun playoff matchup. Mm-hmm. This Dolphins team, the way they finished the season, the way they kind of, limped at the finish line, I don't see it. Give me the Bills. I will go 34-7.
Wow. So, domination.
Yeah. I think there's too much. I think DeMar Hamlin's going to be at the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The emotion for Buffalo with that, the talent that they have, and the injuries with Miami, too much to overcome.
It's funny. When I was watching tape for my video on it, there's a play where I forget which Dolphin receiver it was, but like DeMar Hamlin was in a place where he could have like totally laid him out and just like chose to like lay off him and just like gave him a pat on the back. I was like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah. Seems like a good dude.
Yeah.
Good dude.
Yeah, and it's good to see that he's released from the hospital and all that stuff. So yeah, should be interesting. Kyle, is it a bit of a bummer that we are kind of looking forward to next week a little bit, even though it's the playoffs already?
Yeah. If these are bad, and if you look back at if these games are bad this week, and if you look back at last season where it was like Pittsburgh was in the playoffs, nobody really wanted to see Ben Roethlisberger one more time at that point. I don't think the 7 seed in the NFC was that much of a competition either.
Right. I forget who it was, but I remember it was the Eagles against the Buccaneers.
That's right. And then you also had Arizona getting blown out in that season too. We don't need 7 teams. I think that's one of the takeaways we've had.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but I still prefer this. I always felt I felt before the 7 teams, though, almost the entirety of wildcard weekend felt like kind of a wash. It always felt like, well, the real Super Bowl winners always come from the 1 or 2 seeds.
Yeah, outside of the Giants, but
right. And there's the occasional fluke year. We have been on 8-year run where there hadn't been a 3 or higher seed make the Super Bowl. So I still think it works better this way.
That's fair. And it gives real incentive to win the conference, get the 1 seed.
Yeah, and it makes it more interesting. And again, last week was way more exciting because we had a 7 seed. Like last week wouldn't have been that interesting if we only had the 6 seeds.
That's fair. You've talked me into it, but yes, it does seem like it's a little bit of a lackluster week.
Yeah, which is listen. If the worst case scenario is, oh no, a couple of these 6 playoff games aren't going to be super interesting, I'm okay. I'm all right with that.
And you know what? If it leads to, if Patrick Mahomes is playing Justin Herbert, and then on the other side we have Joe Burrow against Josh Allen, I can't complain that much. That's a pretty fun, second round.
Yeah, and I also have to say too, it's like if the Packers won, and Lamar and Tua were both coming back this week, we'd be talking about this as like an amazing setup.
Yeah, that's probably true too. So I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So that is that, Kyle. That's our show.
Yeah, 1 hour. We didn't even have to talk about anything else. Look at us.
Yeah, we still could if we wanted.
Yeah. What'd you think of the coaching stuff? It was pretty quiet.
Yeah, I guess I haven't seen all of it. I suppose I got annoyed with there was just I don't know. I think I'm not sure if it was Rappaport or Schefter. Someone was just tweeting so much about these small details. Just tweet it out when something happens. I don't need to hear these little small details because now I don't know what happened because I got notification every 5 minutes about something different.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a few vacancies. I mean, usually there's one kind of shocking one, but there really isn't that this season. I guess the one thing would be this McVay story, which I mean. It seems like it's safe to assume he's not going to coach next season. We'll see.
Yeah, it's at least we'll play it out as though that's probably what's going to happen, but who knows for sure. I don't know. Maybe he wants more money. Could be, but yeah, I don't know. It's Kyle. Let him know. Can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. Make sure to follow him, Matt Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK.
Yes, of course, if you like audio only podcast, anywhere you get the audio only feed, that should be available. It's On the Sideline Podcast is what you search. And we'll be back on Monday. It's going to be Monday, midnight Eastern, as opposed to Sunday, because there's a game on Monday, and we want to cover all of them, as I will be, either very happy or very sad that we're going to get a lot of emotions on our next podcast.
Yeah, it's either Bucs are going to the Super Bowl or football's canceled.
Yeah, football is stupid. Why do we even do this?
It's a dumb sport. It's basketball season. What do you mean?
And it sucks too, because like all year long I've been like, okay, well, whatever, we'll get to the playoffs, but then we'll get blown out. I won't have my hopes up, and then if we win, great. There's no expectations, and now we're playing the stupid Cowboys, who look so terrible. So now I have expectations again.
Yeah, you're talking yourself back into it. You won a few games.
Completely, and then I'm like, okay, well, if we beat them, and maybe could we get a scenario where, what if, I don't know, if we it would have to be a scenario where I don't want to play the 49ers. I'm already saying like, oh, we can't play the 49ers, as if like we could beat anyone else. So okay, maybe the Eagles, that would be an opportunity. We beat them last year. Maybe you can get the Vikings to upset the 49ers. We could beat the Vikings easily in the NFC Championship game. I'm doing too much thinking, Kyle.
Yeah, that is a lofty expectations for a team under 500, but can you ever count out Tom Brady?
Here's what I have to say, though, Kyle. Here's the one thing that's keeping me in it. Isn't it the most Tom Brady stat of all time to say, hypothetically, if Tom Brady only had one losing season in his career, and when that happened, he won the Super Bowl? I mean, that would be perfect.
And he keeps his even year streak going,
Right. Well, so is it a winning season if they go, at least go to the Super Bowl? Well, can you count all those games?
Not really how it works, but I guess we'll just ignore that fact.
Okay, all right. So the hope for the winning season still alive. I don't know. Should be a very fun game. Hey, 3 of these games should be legitimately great.
That's our hope. That's definitely our hope. Or else it's going to be a very boring show Monday night.
And again, is it that crazy to think that like Geno Smith could like Purdy throws a pick 6 early on, and then all of a sudden that game's interesting? Like, no, that'll happen in one of those 3 games. That it'll be at least it'll be closer than we realize.
I do think one of the games that we expect to be close will be a blowout, and one of the games we expect to be a blowout will be close. That's my prediction.
Yeah. How long until we get to our first controversy about a referee call? Think we make a game without it?
No.
Yes.
Who's the first game again? It's Seattle, San Francisco, right?
Yeah. I think yes. I think about 4 minutes into the first game.
Yeah, I would say so. Oh, it's clearly fixed.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. Again, thank you to everybody for listening. We do appreciate it. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out?
Looking forward to the playoffs. Let's make it happen. For your sake, I hope you're able to pull off the win Monday. It'll be fun. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes, it should be a great time. Okay, thank you, everybody. We do appreciate it. And until next time, see you later, alligator.
Peace.